Good afternoon, leaders, and a warm welcome to session 3, chapter 2 of the Leadership Masterclass. I welcome all the leaders who is present in the meeting today. I'm doing a check. Leader Mabel, are you in the room? Okay, Leader Mabel is not in the room as yet. Let us proceed. Leaders, as always, we start with an opening prayer because as leaders, we realize that leadership is a calling and not a position. And as such, as it is a calling, we invite the higher authority into the session today. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather as leaders today. We thank you for the gifts, talents, and potential you have placed inside each one of us here. As we are speaking about training today, we ask for wisdom, understanding, and humility to learn. Help us to grow in skill, character, and responsibility. And may this time equip us to serve our communities better and lead with integrity. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Now that we have given the respect and honor to the high authority, we will now move over to our WIFOs. And to those who have been in the session before and all the leaders of the IEDF, we know that the WIFO is a moment where we reflect on our calling. Why are we here? Why has God created us? Why are we here today? Why are we in the session? Why have we been drawn to be in the session today? So we do our WIFO and we ask leaders randomly to share their WIFOs. The reason we do random is so that it is not prepared. So I'm going to ask one leader, and then I'm going to ask that leader to ask any other IEDF leader to share their WIFO. Let me have a look and see who is in the room. Leader Tapelo, I see that you are here. Leader Tapelo, can you hear me?
Good afternoon, leaders. Thank you, GPS. I'm here. Can hear you.
Good afternoon. To everyone in the room, if you do not know, Leader Tapelo is the Africa head, the IDF Africa head for traditional leaders and royal authorities, a woman with a powerful calling on her life. Leader Tapelo, can I ask that you share your WIFO and then you can pass it on to any other leader that's in the room today?
Thank you so much, my GP. Good afternoon, leaders. I'm privileged to be here and honored. And thank you so much for being in this conference. My WIFO for today is to identify leaders that are eager to serve in the IEDF under their purpose in life concerning the vision and the mission for IEDF, and also to keep on understanding every day. And for a leader to be able to head a movement, they should be learning every day. And I believe that having done the Leadership Masterclass and being in this conference today also upgrades my level of intelligence and knowing about leadership skills I believe it applies for everyone that is here today. And that is my why today, and also to fulfill my God-given purpose for the IEDF. Thank you so much, my JP. I will pass it on to Leader Mabuto.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, leaders. Good afternoon, GP. And thank you, Leader Tapelo. GP, can you confirm that I'm audible?
You are audible, Leader Mabuto.
Thank you, GP. My wife for today, my reason to be in this meeting is to continue listening to you, GP, as the author of the Leadership Masterclass. We may be leaders of the IETF at the continent level, but the training on leadership is a continuous process. I'm here in this meeting today so that I can learn from you how leadership is done in alignment with how Jesus led. That is the reason I am in this meeting. I'm trying to look for the leaders that I can share, I can forward the 18 of the rifle to. I see that my friend Bev is here. Bev, I'm handing the rifle to you. Thank you, GP.
Good morning, leaders. Good morning, GP. Thank you, Leader Mabatu. My wife is, I am here to understand the workings of the IEDF. I'm here to look, listen, learn, and engage. I feel that through my years of working corporate, I've learned the one side of the doings of things, but my heart always goes back to the NGO sector, the informal sector. And this is where I have found that I fit in most comfortably. So for me, my wifeful is to be aligned with the IEDF's values, their missions, and the vision, and to really learn. That's why I'm here today. Thank you, GP. Thank you, leaders.
Thank you very much, leaders, and thank you for sharing your rifles. And again, that was unprepared. That's from your heart. Thank you. Everyone that has shared it, you have really inspired all of us in the room. Thank you. Leaders, chapter 2, training. This chapter exists because calling alone does not qualify a leader. For those who were in session 2 last week, we had an in-depth talk around calling. And this call alone does not qualify you as a leader. You see, because passion, which is linked to your call, passion, without preparation is going to lead you to failure. And vision, and we've spoken about calling and vision last week. Vision without training leads to frustration. Many leaders are called. However, only few leaders are trained. And that gap is where leadership breaks down. This session matters because training prepares you for authority, influence, and responsibility. It's a very important note to make, the leaders, where I've said in the last session, whenever you come into the session, have a book and a pen, because you are going to get revelations, you're going to get ideas and thoughts that's only being revealed to you. And if you don't write them down, you could be losing a moment where the higher authority is planning to change your very life. So please make sure you've got a pen and a book. I repeat, the session matters because training prepares you for authority, influence, and responsibility. But before we continue, it is important that I clarify something clearly, and you will hear me say this in every session as we have new people joining the sessions every week. The IEDF is not a religious movement. We do not promote any specific religion. We are inclusive of all cultures, beliefs, and backgrounds. We are also not a political structure. We are merely a unit and a collection of visionary leaders across the world, finding each other and collaborating towards a common mission. When you hear me reference Jesus during these sessions, I do so as a leadership example and not as a religious requirement. I reference Jesus because in my life I am Christian religion. And from my experiences and what I've been exposed to and what I've come to learn is that Jesus is one of the greatest leadership developers in history. His model focused on training, multiplication, and legacy, and his leadership principles are universally applicable. We therefore extract this leadership principle or leadership principles, not religious doctrine. So, leaders, we now proceed. Before we talk about training, I want you for a second just to be calm. Take a deep breath, relax, and if you are able to, if you're not driving, if you're able to, close your eyes. I want you to imagine something. I want you to see this for a second. Deep breath and out. Close your eyes. Imagine this. Communities free from poverty. Leadership in government, in business, in our communities, in our religious fraternities, who are skilled, ethical, and confident. Imagine businesses that are growing sustainably. Young people trained, released into industry, equipped. And imagine a unified informal economy working together. You can open your eyes if your eyes were closed. Leaders, this vision will not be achieved by intention alone. It requires trained leaders. Vision without training, as I said earlier, creates frustration. However, training turns that vision that you see into execution. I want to do a quick CTASA refresher. The C in CTASA stands for call. The T stands for train. The A stands for authority. The S stands for send. And the A stands for accountable. The core teaching from chapter 2 focuses on the T, which is about training. And that is because training is the bridge between your calling and authority. Leaders, you got to grab that one. Training is the bridge between having identified your calling and walking into authority. Calling reveals your purpose. Why are you here? Why has the Almighty, why has the higher authority, why has God created you? in a time such as this? Why are you in this meeting? Why? What is your calling? So once you've identified your calling, you would then, your purpose is revealed to you. And as we said, this is very important because there are many powerful leaders who have not identified the calling and they are working on the wrong thing. Training develops capacity. So what that means is when I'm trained, when I am equipped, I am able to perform a duty or a task effectively. So training develops capacity. And authority is only released when capacity is proven. What does this mean, leaders? When I say authority is only released when capacity is proven. Pen, book, write this down. You get what we call power, and then you have authority. These are two different things. You see, power is when someone puts you in a position of power and you have been given the power in the, let's say you are at work and you are a manager and you are managing people. You have a position of power. So you give an instruction, people must follow. If they do not follow, there are consequences for not doing that. Power. You were in the army, right? You were general, you're holding some kind of a rank. You give an instruction, the person that's listening to you must do it. If they do not follow your instruction, there are consequences. That is power. Authority, very important word, leaders. We mustn't confuse authority for power. Authority is when people willingly follow you and choose you and select you as the leader. That is authority. Now, authority, when we say that authority is released only when capacity is proven, what we say is that people will choose you and willfully follow you if they can see that you know what you are talking about. If they can see that truly you can lead them to this vision that they see. They all want to go a certain direction and they look at you and say, you are the best person to take us there. We will follow you. We choose you and we choose to follow you. That is authority. Okay, so that's the difference between authority and power. However, you need power and you need authority for maximum influence. So the word leadership equals influence. These two words mean the same. If you have no influence, you cannot lead. If you say, everybody, let's go right, and everyone says, no, we're not going to listen to that person, we're going to go left, you have no influence. But if you say, let's go right, and they all say, okay, you said right, let's go, that means you have influence. So influence, the greater your influence, that is the greater your leadership. And leadership is authority plus power. Okay, so when we say that training is the bridge between calling and authority, we are not necessarily talking about power, we are singling out the word authority. And this is when people willingly follow you. And leaders, if we focus on improving our authority, this is where true leadership and servant leadership resides. Untrained leaders rely on position and power. And we see that. Look around in companies, businesses, governments. I'm not talking against any of these. I'm just saying, identify leaders. Untrained leaders, leaders in portfolios or positions that they're not trained for. They rely on power and position. However, a trained leader, knowledgeable within a certain area, put in a position of leadership, that leader carries authority. Isn't it so? So training prepares leaders to lead responsibly. Key words, leaders. But again, each of these sessions, I only have 45 minutes to run through everything. And every time we do a chapter, it literally is a full day seminar. So I do not have the time to go into all of these. But there will be a recording, and I really encourage you to listen to it again. But training prepares leaders to lead responsibly. That word responsibility, we discussed that in session 2, when we discussed calling and discussed responsibility. Training also prepares leaders to make wise decisions. Leaders, I've got to stop here for a second. Wise decisions, because that's what we do as leaders, isn't it? We carry the responsibility of making decisions. But leaders, wise decisions. And let us all, let's be clear. The quality of your decision depends on how much you know on the topic or the subject matter. If myself, I'm not a farmer. So how can I go and make decisions in the area of agriculture? I'm not a farmer. But if I go and I study agriculture, I really study that matter. I study the topics related to it. Now my decisions in that area becomes better, isn't it? I can't be a soccer coach if I've never played soccer in my life. How do I lead my team and develop strategies if I've never played the game? So training helps you make wise decisions. And leaders, I'm going to give you, in between, I'll give you some tips. Write this one down. Just in the area of decisions, I'm giving you a golden nugget. When making decisions, there are 2 types of thinking that you must apply. There are many other ways of making decisions, but I'm going to give you one golden nugget. So when you walk away, you can say the GP gave us this golden nugget. When making decisions, there are 2 types of thinking that you can apply: fast thinking and slow thinking. So when you are making a decision with little or no consequence, and let's say you are sitting in a restaurant, you're looking at a menu. Am I eating a burger? Am I buying fish and chips? What am I buying? That's a decision with little or no consequence. Well, unless you've got diabetes or something, it's got heavy consequence. But let's assume in this particular example that I'm using, you are healthy, everything is good. You're going to choose something to eat. Look at a menu. Do I buy a parcel, fish and chips, or do I buy a burger, or do I buy ribs, whatever, right? That's a decision with little or no consequence. So there you can make a quick decision. You can't sit with the menu for an hour or tell the waiter, can you wait another day before I tell you what I want to order, right? You make a fast decision. However, when you make decisions with long-term consequences, you apply slow thinking. Sorry, so not fast thinking. Fast thinking is when you order or you make a decision where your decision has little or no consequence, but where your decision has long-term consequences, you take your time and you apply slow thinking. In other words, if you are not ready to make a decision, do not be forced into it. Say, let me think about this. This decision is very important. It's got long-term consequences in our community. It's got long-term consequences on the people that is trusting me to lead them. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to take my time on this one. Give me a day or 2. I'll get back to you on this one. In other words, apply slow thinking. When you apply slow thinking, you will make wiser decisions on matters that have long-term consequences. Okay, so that's a golden nugget: fast thinking and slow thinking. Training also prepares leaders to handle people without damaging them. So again, training prepares leaders to handle people without damaging them. Leaders, I don't have enough time to go into this, but we have all been in situations where we were with a leader, and through not having applied proper leadership strategies, we might have been the ones that have been damaged because of that. Training also prepares leaders. This is the important one: multiply leadership beyond themselves. And this is what Jesus did. He multiplied leadership beyond himself. He invested time in training. He trained his disciples. And when he left, his disciples continued the work that we are still talking about today. So training prepares leaders to multiply leadership beyond themselves. That's a very, very important part. And we will get to that as we go further down the leadership masterclass. We will talk around multiplication. I also need to just touch on Vasira because I spoke about CTASA, but the model of the Leadership Masterclass, as you would know, talks around CTASA, and it also talks on a very important factor called Vasira, which is the NOT model for complex change. And Vasira simply means the V is vision, the S is skills, the I is incentives, the R, resources, and the A, action plan. Today, as we are talking about the T in CTASA being train, we are talking around the S in Vasira, which is skills. So training primarily strengthens your skills. And it acts as a very, very effective and important part within the Vasira model. You see, leaders, when you develop your skills through training, you start leading effectively. And this is what you are doing right now, sitting in this leadership masterclass. You are developing your leadership skills. You are taking time to train and invest in yourselves. And it's because of what you are doing now that you will lead effectively. Skills also creates confidence and credibility, isn't it? If you know that I've developed my skills or I've developed my ability as a leader, when you are called to lead, you step up with confidence. You don't shy away. Oh, it's okay. Give it to someone else. That's not really for me. I'm a shy person. I can't talk as well as the next. But once you've developed your skills, you walk with. Even your body language is different. When someone talks to you, the look in your eye is different. Skills, very, very important, leaders. I want to talk just quickly because I'm watching the time. And last week we couldn't get to questions and answers. And I really want to hear from you in the room. So I need to move through all the content. However, it's important that we use an example where training impacted leadership in a mighty way. And I want to talk about Jesus as a model of training and multiplication. Leaders, Jesus trained himself first. I'll repeat. Before Jesus went out and did ministry, Jesus trained himself first. He had years of preparation before going into public leadership. He trained himself and developed his discipline, his obedience, and he focused on self-mastery. Before Jesus led publicly, he trained privately. Leaders, got to grab that. Before Jesus led publicly, he trained privately. Then Jesus went on, and then he continued to train his disciples. He gave them 3 years of intentional hands-on training, teaching them, modeling them, correcting them before releasing them. Releasing, I mean sending them to go do the work. Jesus focused on continuation, not dependence. Very important, that last one, leaders. Jesus focused on continuation. In other words, when I'm not here, if anything happens to me, and I'm no longer here, this must continue. He didn't build a dependence on himself that says, if I'm not here, this movement stops. If you are not there, does your nonprofit organization continue without you? Does your religious institution continue if you are no longer there? Does your business continue if you are no longer there? You see, leaders, Jesus trained his disciples so that when he left, the work continued, but not just continued, it expanded. The lesson out of this is that training is how movements outlive the leader. This is a lesson that we have come to learn on our journey. So when we do not focus on training, the movement tends to stop. You start something and then you find you got to start it again because you had leaders working with you and you were all excited and the passion was strong. But because you did not focus on training, many of those leaders would leave. They would stall and you got to start again and then you find new leaders and you start again. And this is where we realized the missing link. So we're sharing these truths with you, leaders. Training is how movements outlive the leader. Authority also flows, and as I said earlier, it does not flow from position, it flows from competence. And I said earlier, authority flows from competence. In other words, it flows from training, it flows from skills, your ability to do something effectively. Authority flows from that. And what's authority? People choose to follow you because they can see you are competent. Authority. It does not flow from position. I said earlier, position is power. Someone says you are a chairperson, you are a sector chairperson, you are a chapter chairperson, you are a deputy chair, you are secretary general. You are given position, in other words, you are given power. But the biggest contributor to your influence sits in authority. So, authority, because it flows from competence, in other words, your ability to carry out an action effectively, authority depends a lot on training. Because training will build, as I said earlier, confidence for you, yes, but it also builds confidence in those who are following you. Training earns trust. People trust you. And as I said earlier, training increases your influence. And ultimately, leader, if you say I'm a leader, then you are saying I'm someone of influence. If you say I'm a great leader, you are saying I'm someone of great influence. So if you think you are a great leader, but you've got little or no influence, you're not a great leader. Your leadership is related to your influence. So training increases influence. As skills increase, as I said, your authority increases. That is the key, authority. And as authority increases, leaders' impact multiplies. Because that's what we want, isn't it? We're not leading for leading's sake. We're leading for impact. We're leading for change. So for you to have a massive impact and multiply that impact through others, you need to increase your authority. In other words, you need more people to follow you. But to achieve that, you need to increase your skills. Legacy is built when leaders train others. Leadership must continue beyond one person. Leaders, the reason I am doing Leadership Masterclass, I am doing this very thing. Leadership of the IEDF must continue beyond me. If I am no longer the global president and I'm not here, leaders must be equipped to take on the leadership of this powerful movement. And so too each of us must ensure that that happens, that the role that you are holding within your community, within the structure, if you are no longer there, is there someone else or others that can take it forward? The answer is no, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, leaders. The IEDF exists to eradicate poverty, to address the social ills in our community, and to unite the informal economy. That is our mission broken down. Our strategy to achieve our mission is to develop 10,000 transformational leaders globally by the year 2030. We want leaders who are trained and leaders who train others. We are no longer waiting for others to change our communities. We are stepping up as leaders, saying we will effect the changes that we want to see. Leaders, if you are new in this room or you've been invited to this leadership masterclass session because someone sees potential in you and you are not serving in the leadership structure of the IEDF yet, and something is stirring inside of you, it's because you were not created to sit alone on the sidelines. If you have a vision, you want to be trained, if you want to grow in authority, in power, and in influence, and if you want to be part of a global collective movement of visionary leaders, all committed to the same mission of eradicating poverty, of eradicating the social ills that is haunting our communities, then we're inviting you to join us. We are builders, we are trainers, and we are visionary leaders. And together we have committed ourselves to raise 10,000 transformational leaders and eradicate poverty in our communities. As my closing statement, training is not a cost. Training is an investment, and the return of that investment is transformed lives. Leaders, you have to grab that last bit. Training is not a cost. Training is an investment, and the return is transformed lives. If you are leading and you are not seeing transformed lives, then leaders, we have to start training. Leaders, I thank you. Thank you for your time. We are now moving over to questions and answers. We have 7 minutes. If there are any questions, please raise your hand and I will direct it to you. I am doing this talk from my cell phone, so I can't easily see your raises, but please raise your hand and if you got any questions, and I will direct it to you. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. We still have 7 minutes. I am going to share this one thing with you, and I think it could be that this is the way it was supposed to be. Leaders, there's a section on training that is not part of this, and I was going to keep it. Well, as a matter of fact, I think let's touch on this quickly. I'll share my personal story with you in the area of leadership, but one that puts a different dimension on training. Once I've identified my call, I started understanding why I am here, why God has called me for a time such as this. But I also could understand when I look at my life, I look at the family I was born into. I'm the firstborn son. And understand more when I look at my education. I remember I was grade 10 and my parents asked me, what do I want to study? I had no idea what I wanted to study. I didn't know. I grew up in a poor community. And my mother was working for a manager, and the manager was an industrial engineer. And he told her, I'd advise you, let David study industrial engineering. Now, industrial engineering, the word engineering means design, and industrial means industry. So if you put it together, you could say industry designer, designer of industries. But I was more wanting to do medical or something down that line. I really didn't have an idea. And I thought, like, you know what the heck, let's go do industrial engineering. And it was a very expensive course. I'm the only one. I'm one of four siblings. And I managed to qualify as an industrial engineer. But on this journey as well, again, not knowing why I had to study, I just did it because I thought there'd be a lot of money in it. And on this journey, there was this one program called Train. It was, at the time, I think South Africa was just coming out of the apartheid era at the time. And they were looking for leaders or other young people that they could send and raise up community leaders. But it was a program that was done through a company called Anglo America. They were in the mining sector. And well, my mother sent through the application. I wasn't interested in it at all. She sent it in, and I was one of a selected few in South Africa that was chosen to go on this Train experience. Now, I come out of a community leaders, we'll call it middle class. I wasn't really exposed to poverty, if I could term it as such. My parents worked quite hard, and so I was very much protected. But it was here in the session that I went for the first time as a young person to visit townships, to visit villages, and I saw something that I didn't know. I was exposed to different experiences. I still remember it today. But I never knew why I was chosen for this. I was just a young person. It was an application. It wasn't even a thought. My mother did it. So the journey continues, and I go into business. Well, I've got a job. I've got a mentor. This mentor teaches me brilliant skills. As a matter of fact, for those who know me, I'm known as an Excel guru, someone that's quite good in Excel. But of course, I had a mentor that was brilliant, and he taught me these skills. Did well, worked. We had a family business. Family business started struggling, and I got the strong calling to resign from my job. I didn't want to. I had a good job, just got married, to look after a wife. But I just got this calling I had to resign from my job. I couldn't stop it. I had a well-paying job at the time. And I left, and I joined my parents in this small business because they were losing everything. My father had to cash in on his policies and stuff as the business was failing. And I went there. From earning a salary every month, a good salary, I don't think I earned anything for over a year. Couldn't pay myself, nothing. But luckily, I had enough pension money, available at the time that could take me through. But so the journey goes on. Start the business, grow the business, liquidated the company, lost a lot of money, made bad decisions, got involved in bad partnerships. I had a sheriff come to my house with a truck wanting to collect my furniture because I couldn't pay my debt. I was blacklisted. I couldn't get any credit. I couldn't even get a cell phone contract. Nothing, no one. I remember one day, a supplier, we're sitting and talking. He says, "You know what, David? Someone told me that I shouldn't touch you even with a pole stick, because your credit is that horrible." This is the journey for me. And today we've got a business. Challenges doesn't stop. I think anyone here that's got a company, there's never a point where you say in your business that you've made it, because it can change in an instant. I learned that lesson as well. Driving good business and said, business is making good money. I can hand it over to someone else and go on holiday and just take my eye off it. The business is fine. Just to come back and see that someone has destroyed what you've worked on for years because you haven't had proper processes. I look back on this and many other experiences, and you know what I've come to learn, leaders, when you identify a calling, all of that was training ground for where I am today talking to you. You see, training doesn't just happen in a course. It doesn't just happen when you're sitting in a class. Your training has happened since the day you were born. When you identify your calling and you think back throughout your life, you will realize that the bad was never there to destroy you. The bad was there to equip you for where you are today. Training is every day. Therefore, we cannot, leaders, ignore the higher authority in what we do as leaders. We cannot. Leaders, I think it's 12:45. It's 12:45 and I'm feeling emotions going through my body as I'm connecting to certain parts of my life. But I want to thank you. I want to encourage you, whether you are in a bad season, whether you are in a good season, it's all part of God's perfect plan for you. Trust the process. You are today, right here, listening to my voice. You are exactly where God wants you to be right now. Leaders, thank you for your time. And we will reconnect again next week, same time, where we are going to talk about authority. And that one's going to be fun. I look forward to engaging with all of you again then. Goodbye, everybody. God bless.